Welcome back to the Level Up Life Muscle Mindset Mastery. Here with my co-host Dave Wazny, aka Waz. Today we got a special guest, Matt Smith. He's a veteran, former gym owner and trainer. Now he's killing it in real estate with Modern Realty. But more than all the titles, Matt's just one of those guys who's always finding ways to serve, whether it was in the military, the gym, real estate, or giving back to the community. On top of that, this gentleman right here played a huge part in getting me started in personal training. So this one's a little full circle for me. We're going to talk about life, growth, service, probably tell a few stories along the way. Let's dive in. So, Matt, give the audience a little background on your story.
Yeah, the background, man. I guess it really depends on how far back you want that to go because, at my age now, that background goes a long ways.
Mm-hmm.
And I can tell you that myself and the people around me, when I graduated in 1991, would have never guessed that I would be where I am today. So it's been a wild ride. It really has. It started, of course, with the military. My grandfather was a veteran. My dad was a veteran. I kind of knew that college probably wasn't the route for me. And at that time, there was a big push for college. It was like, you got to go to college or you're going to be stuck. You're going to be in a rut. But sitting in a classroom wasn't my mode of learning. And I knew that. And so the Army was the easy path for me to get started.
So when you were in the Army, you served in the, what was it, Somalia?
Mm-hmm.
That's when you had active duty and you were in a war zone, correct?
Yes.
So I've seen the movie Black Hawk Down, and that's where you were, wasn't it?
That is correct. Yes.
Did the movie portray it anything like,
Yeah, I really, it's funny going back to that. When the movie Black Hawk Down first came out, there was a hesitancy to go see it, right? Because the last thing you want is to see Hollywood portray this in a way that wasn't real. And, it was still fairly fresh and raw enough that it kind of evokes some emotion. Really, thinking about that. And my first wife, Tony, she really encouraged me to go see it. And she said, we were divorced at the time, but she said, I'll go to it with you. And I would like to go to it with you. And I would like to see this and understand what she was living here while I was gone. And so we did go to that. And I walked out, a little stunned at how accurately they portrayed it. I mean, as accurately as you could, it was clear that they did their research. They knew the region. They knew the people. They knew kind of what the mission was and how everything went down there. And so kudos to them for really putting out a product that very accurately depicted, what we saw there.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
So time in the military, did that help kind of develop a mindset for you that's benefited you going forward?
Yeah, I think it helps solidify that. But I'll take a step back before that. I played baseball, football, and wrestled for a little bit too. And so I think I had a leg up going into basic training because I was used to 2-a-days in the summer. I was used to time on the mat and wrestling practice. Used to long weekends, at baseball tournaments, and I typically caught both sides of a doubleheader. It's hot, it's dusty, you're tired, you're whatever. And so that grit was already there for me. So basic training was just like 2-a-days again. Having coaches yell at you and all that stuff was pretty easy. So I don't think it developed it for me. I think it solidified it. I think it just really kind of etched it like, this is who you are. You're a grinder. This is how you're gonna do life.
I know you mentioned wrestling. Waz is a huge wrestling guy here. So
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, I had a bone graft done on this wrist between, I think it must have been my sophomore year. So in football, I broke this wrist. We didn't know it was broken back then, late 80s. You taped it up. You went back in the game. You know, it hurts a little bit, but whatever. Plus, I played football at Meridian, and we had like 17 guys on the football team. So, you know, if somebody goes down, the whole team's hurting pretty bad. So I played through the whole season. And then into that first week of practice my sophomore year, being down on the mat really brought it out. And it was like, whoa, something is not right. And so we got that fixed. And I just never came back to it again. But I loved like the couple of years that I wrestled. I absolutely loved it. Because it's a grinder, right?
Yeah.
It's a grinder sport.
It is the realest sport that there is.
Yeah.
You know, I love a lot of other sports more, but wrestling is where it's at.
Yeah.
It's you and that other person, and there's that team aspect, but you have nobody to blame but yourself when things don't go right. And what do? You can get better, you get better.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, I'll tell you, Waz, I would probably even relate wrestling to like powerlifting or in some aspects even track, because you're on the track by yourself. You know, it's 1 through 10 and there's no judging. There's no, you know, well, I think this person was better. You either cross the line first or last.
Yeah.
And like you said, you get better or you don't.
Yeah.
Powerlifting, same way, man. You're the only one. You're the only one out there. Spotlights, you know, all eyes are on you. It's you against the weights, and that's it. And I liked that. I liked that nature of being at war with the weight and nobody else, just me and the bar. You know. So again, I think it's kind of our nature.
Yeah.
That's a big part of weight training for me as far as my mental health. I think about it, me versus the weight. It's just me and the weight while I'm lifting, nothing else. So it allows me to decompress. So when I'm done lifting and I actually go back and revisit whatever topic it is that was bothering me, or even if it's a business decision, I revisit it afterwards and I'm more level-headed. So
yeah, absolutely.
Weight training's been a huge part of my life. So when I got into recovery court, within the first couple months we connected. You've been a supporter of me the whole time. And I remember talking to you, telling you I wanted to get started, and you were referring me clients. And those referrals that you gave me the opportunity to prove myself, not just to the people I was training, but also to myself. Like, this is something I can really do and something I'm going to be good at. So your faith in me kind of helped me build my own confidence in what I'm doing. It's allowed me to get to where I am, and I absolutely love what I do, man. So
yeah,
thank you.
Well, it's really, I guess, just the way things naturally evolve. You know, I was at the end of that season of my life. You were at the beginning of that season of life. You know, these people come to me and they're like, hey, you know, I want to get in shape. I want to, you know, have you work with me, whatever. And as I was kind of wrapping that part of my career up, you feel really honored that somebody would come to you and ask you that. But at the same time, it's really hard to say no. And so you being at that pivotal junction was really, really important and crucial for me to have the confidence in you to say, I'm going to take somebody that trusted me and I'm going to trust you to take care of them. And so, you know, watching you do that, and these people were so happy and so successful with the training that you gave them, that means a lot to me, because those people trusted me and I trusted you. So, you know, outstanding work. It's just a cool way that things evolve. And if you had the ability to think back on this conversation 20 years from now, you know, you're likely going to be in that situation too. And you're going to look at it and say, okay, I'm moving into a different season, and here's this person that's ready to step up. and I'm going to give them that shot to step up, and you can be a part of their life too.
And I think about all the dominoes that have fallen since then, and kind of how, him and Waz and I were working out, and he voiced to me that he wanted to be this. He's like, this would be an awesome job, just basically help people get in shape. And then fast forward, as I started the Level Up brand started growing, and I had a decision to make whether to start, a waiting list or just start telling people I was full, which I never want to do when my mission in life is to help as many people as I can. And then, so it was really cool to be able to, I remember, Boz, you want to start taking some clients in? And here he is now, pretty close to full time. So
Nice.
It's the dominoes, how they've fallen, and the amount of people I've been able to help, and it kind of started back then. So
Well, Waz, what's really interesting about that is that's really where it started for me. And a lot of people don't necessarily know the infancy or kind of the idea behind Smitty's Ironworks and how that even started. But literally, I had made that transition from the military to civilian life. I was working in plumbing, heating, and cooling for J&D in Sanford, and was very, very grateful for the amazing job that they gave me. But I was working out every day. I'd worked out all the way back to high school, all my time through the military, and literally I'm in the gym every day before work, and I'm like, man, this is where I'm comfortable. This is where I really feel good. And I was working out, doing a few small powerlifting competitions and stuff, and people were constantly coming up asking me, hey, will you help me? Can you teach me? Can you, take me under your wing or whatever? And I thought, why is this not my job? And boom, that's kind of how it was born. I literally went home and said to Julie, I said, I want to start a gym. And, it was crazy to think about it because I had no business education. I had no education in fitness, no kinesiology degree, physiology degree, nothing, none of that. I had never even worked in a gym. Like literally I had only been a member of a gym, and here I am like, I'm going to start a gym. And everyone was like, you're nuts. And I'm like, yes, thank God I'm nuts.
Amen.
And that was it. That was, that's going all the way back to 2002. And we didn't have an idea what we were doing. We just thought, let's take care of people. Let's provide for them what they want. I knew as a gym member what we all craved and what we wanted, that the guy that owned Superior Fitness at the time wasn't providing, and just really thought, I'm just going to do it the way I would want it if I was a member. And that was it. I quit my job and
Yes.
we started with nothing. I mean, no money, no nothing. Matter of fact, we paid payroll for our staff for the first 6 months on credit card withdrawals, cash advances from an ATM machine. That's literally how I paid my payroll. I mean, you talk about pucker factor. And then it took, I want to say it took like 4 or 5 years to pay off what we took in cash advances the first 6 months to pay payroll. It took 4 or 5 years, but Julie and I believed so much in what we were doing that we were like, this risk is worth it. And we're going to take this risk. And people are going to call us crazy. And here we are.
I think the one part out of what you were just saying that really stuck out to me is you said to take care of the people. And I think in any business, when the primary focus isn't on revenue and it's on the people, and I'm sure you can relate with real estate now, focusing on the individual or the customer and whatever they're, actually helping them, I think is the difference between a successful or a failing business, is customer focused.
Yeah, I absolutely. It's kind of the difference sometimes too between career and job, right? Are you showing up to a job when you guys train clients? Do you feel like you're showing up to a job? No, Not really.
4:30 in the morning.
Yeah, I mean,
And
a
the sun-
job
sun
is,
comes
know,
up
when
and
you
it's
punch
heaven.
a time clock, right? And you're doing the job, you're making the widget, you're doing the whatever. When we choose to work in service industries or relational business where we're creating and forming and evolving relationships around everything that we do, and I get it, right? That's not everybody's cup of tea. But for those of us that love and crave those relationships, this isn't a job at all.
Right.
We don't go to work every day.
Yep.
Yeah. Which that makes me think about, your impact community wide. I know at the local Business Alliance Chamber of Commerce event, it made me chuckle because you go up, you're an advocate for veterans, and then I see you do a lap around the place, you come up again for another nonprofit, and you're speaking about the local homeless shelter. So, yeah, the open door.
The open door,
Which
baby.
is-
Got the
is
socks
just
on.
The amount of, so it's not only in your business, in your career, we'll say, but it's in your DNA, service work. And I had Dallas on last week, who she's my most recent Rotary sponsor. I've had two, but you were the one that initially kind of got me in that door.
Yeah.
And during those moments I was fresh in recovery. The first time I came to a meeting to come basically join, remember it was December of 2017 and I was still in recovery court. So to me, that being a part of Rotary and just the amount of people that I've been able to be exposed to through that and how they operate in the community through service work has really impacted me in a really positive light. So,
Yeah, and I'll tell you, that community service thing for me really goes way back to my mom, and just watching my mom and the servant heart that she had. Never really thought twice about it, and a handful of times over, the later part of my career now, I've won some or been awarded some really, really cool awards for that. And people will typically say, how do you find time or why is it so important to you? And it makes you kind of stop and think about it. And I'm like, well, I don't really think, I guess I never really thought about it as an option. It was just how I was raised. My mom was always helping people. She was always doing something, involved with something. And so you just kind of see that. And I love people, which is why I've always worked in relationship type business. So it just really comes full circle. I also know that during all those years at Smitty's, and being a small business owner, which was something I never dreamed that I would ever be able to do or would be a part of my life, I had so much gratitude for this community and how they supported me that it felt like, how could I not want to give back to the community that helped me, be who I am and get where I am. And so, yeah, it just, but introducing other people to that, like you, and really kind of stepping out on that path of saying, here's a way to really feel the impact of that service in the community, wherever it is, whether it's in nonprofits or a service club or whatever, however, it doesn't matter. Coach kids, mentor kids, just do something.
yeah, that's this guy right here. He'd give you the shirt off his back. Very people oriented. That's how we try and operate, with training our clients, client first, and their well-being first.
Yeah. Waz, where does that come from for you?
I mean, I think very similar a lot, like you said, that mom having that good Christian, old school, my mom was a farmer girl, right? The best baker ever. But then just watching both my parents in that serving, I'm the 6th out of 7 kids. So the nieces and nephews, and then my love of sports. I was coaching as soon as I could. Before Adam brought me on, how many people that I taught
Yeah.
around in the gym. And it just, financially, it never even looked good. And then I was in the oil field when I met Adam. And, I mean, from afar, it was awesome. But, I mean, how can you, I'll train you for 2 weeks and then I'm going back to Pennsylvania or West Virginia.
Yeah.
I mean, that was never going to stick. But it's the most rewarding, right? Like when you're a giver by nature, right? Taking or getting doesn't feel comfortable.
Yeah.
But I do take some of that, from, there's one kid, he played ball with my son and he just had a birthday and I've stayed in touch with him. He's 25 years old now and how much of an impact I made on him. And I last coached him when he was 12, and he went through Bullet Creek and, all them years and still has me high on his mentor list.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's the reward I like.
Yeah.
I don't need to hear my name called or, any of that other stuff, but knowing you made a difference for somebody, right? It's just huge.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah, with my background in substance abuse, that's really rewarding too. We get to work with the kids in the juvenile center and with the legal issues that I had and the substance abuse and all that. It's to be able to go in there and say, we're going to work out. We're going to focus on exercise because it's positive for the body and it's great for your mind. So mad, sad, or glad can benefit you. But even more so, I can look at them and I can say, I probably should have been in this facility when I was your age. I looked at it as luck that I didn't, but really, you're the lucky one because you're here now.
Mm-hmm.
And if you get an adult record, there's these consequences. And I explained to them, and they may not even be thinking about life insurance, but for me, I had to wait 7 years before I could even get life insurance because life insurance companies they basically group me with an addict, a drug user, felon, puts me in this box, and then they look at statistics. So it's not the person. They don't look at the fact that I'm a business owner, that I serve on a board of a nonprofit. They don't look at that. Yeah. They just look at my past and all my, like the rates and everything. So I explain this to these kids and it's not even on their radar, but I like to think that what would I have done back then? And probably would have shrugged it right off, but maybe, just maybe, plant a seed that might grow in 5 years and keep them from ending up wasting 10 years of their life.
Yeah, Adam, and I've been really fortunate to mentor some kids at the JCC, and not necessarily in working out or anything like that, but just meeting with them, getting them out, going for walks, taking them for a ride or whatever. And it's really interesting because, you get a 16-year-old young man who looks at you driving a decent vehicle and dressed decent and successful in your life, right? And you can see in their eyes, they're like, you don't know me, you don't understand, you can't relate. And then when you open up and you share, some of your story, then you see the eyes get big like silver dollars. Like, yes. They're like, holy cow, I can't believe that, you had some trouble too, and you spent a few nights in jail, and you have done that too. And so then the script flips to, I understand that this is how your family is. I understand that that's how your family's family was, and this in a lot of cases is very generational. But the thing I always try to tell these kids is you can be the one that breaks that cycle.
Yes. You
can, because I did, because Adam did, because all these other people around you did. You can be the one that breaks that cycle too. And to try to really teach them that there's a different way. There's a different life. There's a different path. Here's what it looks like. And now you're seeing this. You're seeing me 35 years later, but this isn't who I was 35 years ago. And that's when you get those breakthroughs. And I still talk regularly to one young man that I met with probably 5 years ago. And it's just really cool to see, for me to see him, not perfect, because none of us are, but on the right path.
Yeah.
You know, and you're like, shoo, you know, it's that one. You're just hoping you can get through to one. Change one life at a time. And then that individual likely will change someone else's life too.
Yeah.
And then you got that butterfly effect where, you know, we're slowly reaching out and changing people. It's cool stuff.
You know, that's a big one that we do both preach there is, you know, hey, look, we're not staff. We were just like you guys.
Yeah.
And giving them that story because they do see it differently, right? Where I tell them I didn't have people saying things that had been there to me when I was younger, right? Where I could have, before it got bad, made a change. It was, oh, you don't understand, right? You're trying to ruin my fun or whatever, right? Typical stupid teenage kid.
Yeah.
But had I had somebody that was like, you don't want to end up like me, and that made that change, you know, would I have listened to? Because there's a handful of them. And I mean, my big one there is we're saving them all.
Yeah.
And I like when people, well, you know that song. Tell me which one I can't. Tell me which one to not waste my time on.
Yeah.
Nobody can do anything but look at the ground.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah,
You save them all.
Yeah. That's great.
I had a client that said, the analogy, do you know what the duff is in the forest?
No.
So it's like, he explained it to me. It's this organic material that seeds will fall in and they can sit in for 50 years. But until they hit the soil, they won't grow. So think like leaves and stuff. So they sit there. That's our job when we're mentoring, I think. This is a great way I like to look at it anyway, is that we're just putting these seeds in that duff because it's each individual's decision to take that seed that we plant, that bit of knowledge, and to choose their own path. Because I had people telling me, Adam, you're going to go to jail. I had a high school teacher that said statistically 2 out of the 30 people in this classroom will end up in jail at some point. And with what I was doing at the time, I looked around and it was me due to my conduct. Everybody else in the classroom was looking at me too. So it took me a long time to take bits of information, like my aunt would say, you pay now or you pay later.
Yeah.
That's in terms of work, right? Could have worked hard in my 20s, but now I'm working hard in my 40s. Right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. You can pay now or you can pay later. And like maybe a little bit like you, I didn't get in trouble in high school. It was really in my late 20s when it started to catch up to me. And I paid for that in my own way. We all pay some way. I paid for it in my own way. And couldn't believe that, how did I land here? Like, for me, it was constantly like, you weren't raised this way. What are you doing? What are you trying to, what are you running away from or whatever? I mean, all those different things that I went through at that age, and got away with so much stuff, through all those other years, and thought, well, I was just lucky. Well, luck never lasts forever. But the ability to pivot and land on your feet, that's one thing that I hope people learn, is that you're gonna fall, and when you fall, you either land on your feet and figure it out, or you don't. And it just breaks your heart when you see those people that fall and fall again and fall again and fall again and fall again. And they don't figure out that pivoting part, and it just breaks your heart because you're like, man, I was really, really lucky that I went, whoa, this isn't my path. It again, it's not the way I was raised. It's not who I want to be. It's not the life I want to live. All these consequences, all these things. I mean, shoot, when we started the gym, I didn't even have a driver's license. Julie was driving me to the gym and dropping me off in the morning and picking me up, after she got done with work at the end of the day. So again, I was really fortunate to be able to kind of navigate through that, but it was a wake-up call. It was a wake-up call that, man, you need to get your shit together. And it breaks your heart when you see people not get that, not hit that point, to be able to pivot.
Now let's take a moment to thank our sponsors, Pine Haven Assisted Living. At Pine Haven Assisted Living, they believe in making every resident feel at home. Nestled in the peaceful countryside of Hemlock, Michigan, they offer compassionate care in a family-like environment where residents can enjoy independence with the support they need. Registered nurse-owned and operated, their team provides personalized care, home-cooked meals, and a range of activities to ensure your loved ones continue to live a fulfilling life. They also have alpacas and llamas on site to enrich the lives of their residents. Experience the warmth and comfort of Pine Haven. Call them today at 989-295-6632. That's 989-295-6632. Or you can visit them on their website at pinehavenassistedliving.com. That's pinehavenassistedliving.com for more information. Now, back to the Level Up Life. That makes me think about just how I'm sitting here thinking about how, if you wouldn't have pivoted at that point, how different your life could be. And then thinking back to myself, quitting baseball, and if I wouldn't have quit baseball, how much different could my life have been? Maybe no legal issues, but just our individual choices. And it can be very, very micro choices or the large decisions. Like, I know you pivoted from owning a gym to real estate, which those are not even in the same realm. So
I got a story for that.
Yeah, let's hear it. I want to hear it.
Okay, so real estate was not on my radar, but at the same time, I knew that I was ready to take a different path, right? Like, I don't know if burnout is the right word, but the fitness business was changing a lot and had changed. And I mean on a more of a macro level as far as like owning a gym. Personal training, I think, and physical training was in a great place where I was really happy with the industry, that I saw evolve over 20 years from being very, segmented into, we taught people, chest day, back day, leg day, whatever. And then all of a sudden we saw this evolution of functional training and, things like that. And I was always really pumped about the fact that we had evolved into teaching people to be humans, right? And to move like humans and all of that. But in the wake of that, the gym business model was changing, and you had big box companies coming along, and it's very much the same as like a hardware business. If you're a mom and pop hardware store and they open a Lowe's next to you, what are you gonna do? And so that really put me into a place where I just wasn't happy with running the business anymore. And then it was a job, then it was a grind, then it was like a really unhealthy way of looking at members as I have to have these members. If somebody comes through the door, I have to sell them a gym membership. And I encourage them as to why it's a good idea for them to work out every day. And if you work out here or you work out somewhere else, I don't really care. I just want you to get healthy. You know, that's where I started in the industry, and then that changed. So as I decided to move out of that space, my love of the outdoors, and habitat development and helping people understand how to develop their property and you know, food plots and trees and all that stuff really had kind of taken hold on a personal level for me. And it was introduced to me that, like, hey, can be a job too. And so it's kind of that same light bulb moment of personal training. Like, oh, I love doing this myself. You mean I can do this for a job? You know, okay, sign me up. So that's kind of where real estate came into my life. Was through the outdoors and things of that nature. But what was the most shocking to me was how crazy similar real estate is to personal training. And people look at me like I'm crazy all the time, right? They're like, man, you know, real estate's way over here and, you know, personal training's way over here. How do those two even, you know, how do those two worlds collide for you where you had success here and now you have success here in two totally different things? Here's the reality. Every day that you work with clients, that starts with you listening to them and thinking about the path to help them get where they want to be, need to be. And it's the exact same thing I do. When someone comes to me and says, I want to buy a home. I'm in an apartment, I want to buy a home. Or, my family's growing, I need a bigger home. Or now I'm an empty nester and I need a smaller home. All those things, it's the same, right? And the process starts with sitting down and listening to this need, want, you know, type of thing. And then being the catalyst for putting the plan in place to get that person across the goal line. Just the same way you do in personal training. And so although the mechanism or the end product, if you will, whether it's physical fitness or whether it's a home, is different, everything else about it is the same. Serving the person, listening to their needs, understanding their needs, helping them navigate, getting through the bumps and the challenges, because you know, you all know, I mean, there's days people come into the gym and they're like, well, I don't feel like being here today, or you know, I messed up on my diet and I just don't even think I'm going to do the diet anymore, whatever. And you're the one that says, no, we're going to stay on track. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to pivot. We're going to adjust. We're going to whatever. Same thing with buying and selling a home. People get beat up when they're trying to buy. I've got a client right now that's just lost the third house in a row to multiple offers. You know, that's a big bump in the road. And it's my job to say, it's all right, man. We're going to go through these things, but I'm here. I'm with you. We're in the trenches. We're going to get this done. We're going to pivot. We're going to keep grinding. We're going to keep working, and we're going to get the job done. So it's just crazy how much the same it is.
Yeah, it's just people.
People.
You're helping people at the foundation of either. So you literally listening to him right there, I'm like, I need to get into real estate. It sounds like it'd be a blast.
Yeah.
You sold me, man.
Yeah.
So it's quite the pivot though. The one thing really, you know, I feel like was the factor none of it has felt like work to you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been something you're passionate about. So, you know, I talk to my stepsons and about these types of topics, what they're doing with their lives. And if you focus on stuff, doing something just for a dollar number, right? Like I've heard people say, well, I want to be an anesthesiologist because they make a lot of money.
Yeah.
Money doesn't bring happiness.
No.
Fulfilling a passion and a purpose does, you know, and I know Waz can relate personally when a client comes in, and I'm sure you had clients too, but when a client walks through the door and you see them and they're big old smile and they're like, hey, Adam, I just did this, this, and this, and it's dysfunctional stuff in their lives that just was super easy for them because of what they're doing at the gym.
Yeah.
To me, that's like, I get goosebumps. I get goosebumps right now just thinking about it, just helping that individual. And I'm sure if I was a real estate agent, getting someone that dream home where they wanted to be would be the same thing.
Yeah.
You get that level of fulfillment, and it's just being people-centered.
Yeah, and I mean, none of it. It's not, it's not all, rainbows and unicorns either. There are hard days. Whether you're working in a gym or whether you're working in real estate. I mean, there are hard days. There are stressful days. There are days when you're tired. There are days when whatever. But it's the people that keep you going through the hard thing, because we still have to pay bills. We still have to pay taxes. We still have to, do all these things. There's challenges in my world, that are brought on by, there's multiple moving parts, in buying and selling a home. And so there's things that are outside of my control that stress you out and whatever. But you just look back at the person that you're helping, and that's what kind of drives you through. And, the one other thing I'll say about that pivot that I think is an important message for people to understand is, I thought I would have Smitty's forever. I literally would have told you that I was going to die in that gym, that was all I would ever do the rest of my life. And we built it from the ground up. Your name is on the sign. It's everything, right? Or you feel like it's everything. You feel like it's everything. And then when we made that merge out of that, I didn't realize the resentment that I was carrying for this failure, or what I felt like was a failure, because I wasn't doing that the rest of my life. And so through the process of getting into real estate and whatever, and I was loving it and I was doing great and have a lot of fun, but there was still a couple of years where mentally and physically it was very challenging for me in other parts of my life, because I didn't realize I was carrying this, and that I had never really grieved the loss of that business. And I'll say that again, grieve the loss, right? And we tend to get stuck in this rut of thinking of grieving as something that only happens when a person dies. But it can be any aspect of your life that you leave behind you. You have to give yourself the space to come to terms with that. And I needed to too. And it took a couple of years for me to really be able to do that, and to be able to say, well, I don't look back at that with angst or that I'm upset that, the way the fitness industry changed kind of, boxed me out or whatever. Now I look back at it and go, how lucky am I that was a season of my life, even though that's not the season of life that I'm in anymore. It was just a chapter in my book that is the whole book. The military was a chapter. My childhood was a chapter. The jobs I had between military and starting Smitty's was a chapter. And now Smitty's was a chapter. And I didn't have the foresight to be able to see that. And I'm really, really thankful that I got to that point, and that some people around me were able to help me close that chapter, because I was hanging on to it, right? Even though I had moved on and I was doing good and I was happy, I didn't realize there was still some baggage there. Yep. So it's really just, trying to encourage people to look at these chapters and go ahead and be all right with turning the page to the next chapter.
So it turned into North End after Smitty's.
Mm-hmm.
So did you go through like a dual process of grieving with when it turned into North End, and then recently when North End ended up closing? So was it like another, it's like milestone or mile markers in grief, so I'll give you an example. Mine being most recently, like I am just not the athlete that I used to be. I've been grieving it as I age. My athletic abilities are on the decline. I can still lift pretty heavy, but I can't sprint and jump and move quite like I used to. So, was there layers of your grieving process with that?
I want to say no to that. And I think, Adam, the only reason that it's a no is because I learned the first time and I went through the process properly to be able to leave it behind. So when the building made a transition from North End and all of the equipment was moved out of it and now Adoption Option is in that space. And I'm just thrilled for them and how they really embraced that space, and it's been an awesome place for them. It was okay because I'd already done it. I'd already put that I'd already closed that chapter, and I was okay with it. But yes, when it was North End, it was really hard because constantly all I heard people say was, "Oh, I miss Smitty's. Oh, I miss Smitty's. I wish it was still Smitty's." And I mean, some people like North End, don't get me wrong, but a lot of people were like, "I wish it was, still Smitty's." And so it's kind of that little knife in there all the time. And the process of getting to the point of saying, I know you miss it and I miss it too. But we all learned a lot from that you can continue to carry on with your life today. All the lessons that you learned about culture and life and fellowship and community and weights and being healthy, that didn't die with Smitty's, right? You take that on to wherever it is that you're at today, whether it's Edison's, whether it's at the community center, I don't care where it is. Move to another town and take that culture and celebrate it and let it live on. And that's really what it took for me to get to the turning point to be able to say that was an incredible part of my life. And I'm super grateful for it.
You developed some pretty strong bonds with people through weightlifting too, and I'm sure you kept the friendships with the guys you went through the trenches in that back room, squatting, lifting heavy. I'm sure those relationships are thriving because I know, consider Waz a brother. There's other people I've lifted with along the way. We may not talk regularly, but I know I have a connection with these people from the gym.
Yeah.
And that's what we live for, right? It's human connection.
Yeah. And the cool part down the road is now after 8 years in real estate, I can't tell you how many people I've helped buy and sell homes that were members of the gym, and they'll call up and they'll say, I don't know if you remember me from the gym, but blah, 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 blah. And we, thinking about making a change or whatever. So, I mean, it pays itself forward, and that community and that culture really does pay itself forward. It doesn't matter, what you're doing, whether it's in the gym or in ball teams or in coaching or whatever. Culture is culture, and, being kind and trying to, give people a hand up instead of a handout. Man, it lives on. And it's really our job to do that and to teach that and to keep that mentality going. It's sometimes you look around the world and you go, ooh, I don't know, man. I don't, the direction we're going, but there's still a lot of good people, and there's still a lot of good people, and it no matter how discouraging it gets when you look at what's going on around you, you got to say, I'm going to control my bubble. I'm going to control my little space, right? And I'm going to do the right thing. I'm going to take the right actions. I'm going to do my best to treat people right, and then hope that just grows out from there.
Yep.
Every day.
A little ripple effect.
Yeah.
So what's next then? What's the next chapter? You found that out yet? Or?
Yeah, well, so the next chapter, it's funny because after all the years of playing sports, and then powerlifting was really the first thing for me, and competed at a high level. Matter of fact, I'm judging powerlifting for the Special Olympics over at CMU at the end of May, which is just awesome for me, man. I love being back in the chair. I love judging powerlifting. I love seeing powerlifters, and the fact that it's Special Olympics makes it even more special. But through all those years in powerlifting, and then it evolved into bodybuilding, and then it evolved into running marathons and 50 milers and Ironman and all that stuff. Like you mentioned, look, I'm 52. Okay. I can't do those things anymore, but I need the challenge. I need to wake up every day and say, this is what I'm fighting for and this is what I'm doing. And for me, hunting out west in the mountains, that's where it's at. You know, I started this new workout program through Hunt, Lift, Eat. It's all centered around sandbags and kettlebells. It's absolutely brutal, but that's the next chapter for me. The next chapter for me is going out and conquering mountains, the physical rigors of being in the mountains and staying in the mountains. This fall I'll be in Montana, getting dropped off on a horse. Going to be in there for a couple of weeks. No roads, no nothing. Just me and a couple of other guys, and kind of living off the land and living in the mountains, and that's very physically demanding. And so now that's what really makes that's my contest. That's my mountain athlete is a cool thing. It really is.
Back.
Yeah, it really is.
Sounds intense.
Yeah,
not the workout. I'm saying like mountains, hunting, all that. You ain't got nowhere to go.
Well, it's intense, and at the same time, like for those of us that thrive on having something out there to conquer and to test yourself against, it's not necessarily measured by whether you bring an animal home. It's measured by whether you went out and feel like you did your job in the mountains and didn't let the mountains win. Because I'll be honest with you, the first time I went to Idaho, the outfitter that I hunted with said, a lot of people come out here, on a week-long hunt, and in 2 days they're done. They pack up and drive home. They literally realize they can't hang in the mountains. And I'm like, oh, that's not going to happen. Yeah. So it is that all year training where you're focusing on your Super Bowl of going out there and testing yourself against the mountains, because man, they're unforgiving. It's not just the altitude. It's not just the steep angles. It's not just the long days and short nights with no sleep. It's all of it together. And so it's just a really cool evolution of saying, this is the next thing for me. This is the next test, right, if you will.
Well, when you do drop one and you're backpacking it out,
yes,
I hope you're going downhill.
Yes. It's funny. We look at maps and e-scouting is a big thing these days, because there's so much you can do with 3D mapping and Onyx and all that stuff. And that is a topic of conversation of going, okay, are you leaving camp and going down into a drainage per se, where if you kill an animal, you've now got to come back out of the drainage, or are you leaving camp and going up and then you kill an animal and you get to come back down after you kill the animal? I mean, you're thinking about that. Mm-hmm. Now, at the same time, I can tell you, because I've been there a couple of times, when you're out there and you hear an elk bugle down in a drainage, you go down. You go down. I mean, there's no doubt about it. And, I've had an outfitter look at me before and kind of chuckle and go, are we going down after that bull? And this is big time drainage, 1,500 foot drop, down. And I'm just looking at him going, if there's a bull down there, we're going down. Right. I mean, there's no doubt about it. We are absolutely going down and chasing that animal, and we'll deal with getting it out of there. Yeah. Bit by bit, when we do. But that's the adrenaline. That's the thrill for me. It's not on the platform anymore. It's not towing the line in a race. It's literally having my Super Bowl in the fall and driving out west and just looking at those mountains and saying, Smitty's coming.
That's right.
Smitty's coming.
God's country there.
Well, Matt, thank you for coming on. Yeah. Really appreciate it. Thank you for tuning in, everybody. Remember, episodes air 1 p.m. every Sunday. Thank you for tuning in. Spotify, YouTube, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts.